When you say it, can you clarify what it is?
So it is ritually abused.
Ritually.
Yes.
Can you clarify that for me?
Yes. So there's this whole segment of the world, and they kind of keep it hidden in these secret societies and stuff. And a lot of times it's often generational that they do these rituals. They have a satanic calendar and they follow it, and depending on what the week is, or really week, because they have a lot more celebrations than we do, they have to do various things, and it always includes some kind of sex.
I'm Angela Williams.
And I'm Katie Sudano.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
Welcome to the Voice Up Podcast.
Welcome to the Voice Up Podcast. I'm Katie Sudano.
And I'm Angela Williams.
And we have a special guest today. She is Kelly Hawley. Hawley? Mm-hmm. Did I say that right?
Kelly Hawley.
Hawley, thank you. For those of you who are first tuning in with us today, we are a podcast that's shedding light on a very dark subject, but very important to speak up about, and that's child sexual abuse and sex trafficking and all the layers that go with it. So we hope that this is informative and that you learn some things today and that you get some inspiration today.
And I'm Angela Williams. I'm your co-host with Katie, our lovely Katie, and I'm so excited to have Kelly with us today. Kelly and I have worked in the trenches for many, many years, probably close to 20 years together, and Kelly has a lot of great things to share. So Kelly, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about how child sexual abuse has touched your life?
Okay. Well, I am a overcomer of childhood sexual abuse.
Amen.
And it happened when I was, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe up till 12. And there was a few different people who were the predators. And it really, what it did is really set me on a course in life that was different than what I believed the Lord wanted me on, what his divine purpose was for me. Because what it does is it just changes everything, even biologically. It changes you. It changes your emotions. You don't know what love really is. Most perpetrators are very manipulative, and so they have a way of making you think that they love you, that this is what love is, or that this is our secret, or, it can even go to the point of, I'm going to hurt your parents and stuff. I'll hurt your sister if you don't do this. I'll hurt your brother. So they're very, very manipulative. And when you're a child at that age, your brain is just forming, your body is just forming, and it's supposed to form in a very natural way, in a very loving environment of a mother and a father. But when the families start breaking down, it gives a space for these perpetrators to come in. And that's what happened to me. My parents got divorced when I was 8, I think it was. And leading up to it, obviously wasn't a great environment, and then during it and after. And so it just made me be a vulnerable child that those perpetrators could see and target. And so in that, it set me on a trajectory of trying to fill that hole in that wound once I started to become more conscious of what happened and how.
Did you ever tell anybody as a child?
No, I didn't. And that's an interesting thing that happens, I think, psychologically for maybe many reasons, even guilt and shame. It could be guilt and shame once you realize that it wasn't a good thing, a holy thing. It could be several reasons, but I never told anyone until I was about 33 or something like that.
So you carried the secret from age 5 to 33.
Yeah, I think I did tell one girlfriend maybe in high school, but that was it.
And so many, I think the statistic is 1 in 10 tell ever. 1 in 10 survivors ever tell that secret. How did it make you feel as a little girl carrying that secret?
Well, I think that there's mechanisms within us that allow us to push it far, far back and put almost like an amnesic wall on it. So I never looked at it. And that's one of the things that I don't believe the Lord wanted for me, but that I used to medicate to keep it hidden, was things like alcohol. Okay. And being the life of the party, or overachieving, or even there was a period of some of the drugs. There were so many ways that I tried to fill that hole and try to be good enough and try to find that love that never.
Do you think you numbed the pain, perhaps?
Yeah,
with that?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Anything to not really look at it, to have to really go behind that wall and look at what really happened, and was I responsible for any of it? Who was responsible? What is my responsibility now that I am conscious of it, to bring them to justice? The fact that I wasn't actually protected as a child, and how that I feel about my mother and father about that, and how do I work through that? And there's just so many layers to it that I believe in this society, we're a traumatized society, number one.
Amen.
And a lot of that trauma comes from sexual abuse. With the statistics, you said 1 in 10 tell. Well, okay, if you look at the statistics nationally or through the different statistics, it's 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 to 6 boys. But nobody ever tells. Yeah. So if you actually looked at that, it's most of us have had some form.
Well, not only that doesn't they don't tell, but when you look at, and I've done a lot of research around this, but if you look at state by state, the reporting is so different.
It's so different.
One state may report it as neglect, one is sexual assault, one is rape. So even collecting that data is virtually impossible, because there's no consistency or continuity across this nation.
Well, not only that, but month to month. You told me the statistics on the CDC was a certain number. And when I was doing our website, I looked it up on the CDC and I'm like, they changed it. It says 1 in 20 boys will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday. And I'm like, what happened to the 1 in 6?
Yeah, well, all of a sudden we're better. No, we're going in the wrong direction.
Well, and boys are less likely to tell. And I think that they're being so sexualized now that they don't even possibly see it as sexual abuse. Our children are getting sexualized younger and younger, and that's another issue. So talk to me about age 33, and you told. Who did you tell, and how did that go down?
Well, the reason 33 sticks out is it was when I became born again, like really lay my life down. I had times throughout my life when I'd go to church with different people, and I'd go up to the altar call and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was seeds planted, and I did love the Lord. But it was when I became conscious enough of the fact that my life was not matching up to the Bible. Like, it was the first, like around 31 or so was the first time I really looked at the Bible and really read the Bible. And then he just started doing a work on me. And I was very intense on understanding the Bible for several years. And then once it came to my, realization that, hey, my life is not living up to this. I have not made him Lord of my life. I have been choosing all these different things to try to medicate and numb and not look at the fact that, hey, I was abused. And I think, as I learned, I think that I was doing that because of the fact that I didn't know what love was. I had this big wound, and then I had to look at the fact that, hey, this actually happened to me, and it's pretty disgusting, and just coming to terms with that. And I just laid my life down. I hit what I would consider my rock bottom. And in that rock bottom, I turned to him, and he was faithful in there, and we went on a journey. And so that journey has never stopped, and it just keeps getting more and more revelation and more understanding of how much he loves us and how he has given us the answer in the Bible. And also I would add the books that were stolen from the Bible, because there are several books that I believe were stolen from the Bible that have very important information to help us live out this life. But
And it's tough, and it's tougher
It
when
is.
you've got that childhood trauma. So talk to us a little bit. Are you married?
I am married.
And how did this impact your relationship with your husband?
So I've been married 32 years.
Oh,
Praise
congratulations.
the Lord.
Congrats.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And but the first 6 years were very, very rough. And that kind of correlated to, well, it wasn't really when I first got married, but when I first started getting having my children is when I really started facing everything. But the first few years before that encounter with the Lord and becoming born again and changing, doing the total repentance and 180.
Were you married at the time when you
I was.
came to the Lord?
Yes.
And was he there or followed you or?
So what? It was
I'm just
interesting.
because I'm curious.
No, what happened was he initially was going to expose these people that were studying the Bible with me as a cult, but then when he started reading the Bible with the guys, he was like, "Wait a minute," he's like, he started applying it to himself too.
Oh, perfect. So then you guys kind of grew together in a way, even though you were the
absolutely, and so it's been so much better ever since, But it was challenging because I still had hurts that were not dealt with. And I was using various things to take care of those hurts. And I totally believe
Did your husband know about the abuse at the beginning?
There was a time when I told him.
After you were married?
I think it was, I can't say for sure. It was early on that I told him. But it was very kind of superficial. It wasn't like, this just happened. It was kind of very like this happened, but it wasn't anything really about it. Because it was very just a thing for a long time for me before I got in touch with it and processed it out, and all the junk that went with it. So.
And how's your marriage now?
It's wonderful.
I know you're a wonderful husband, so I just wanted to.
Yep.
And it supports you wholeheartedly. Well, I'm excited to dive into how God has used this experience in your life. So can you talk about kind of from growing in the Lord and growing in your relationship and now a ministry that is touching people worldwide? Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I had that encounter with him, and then I went through this major process of just getting renewed. And that included, studying, doing Bible studies and all kinds of things. And so I went to a Bible study that Angela was at.
About 20 years ago.
Yeah. And I can't remember what was going on, but for some reason you were telling your testimony, and then I was telling my testimony, which were somewhat similar. And she was like, well, I feel led to start a ministry and I'm trying to write this book. And I was like, well, I'll help you, so that's kind of happened. She started a ministry. I came beside her and helped her. We did a lot of different things at Voice Today. One of the main things I was involved in was the healing retreats. We would do, weekend long healing retreats where people would come in from all over.
So we were talking about that earlier, and I'm like, because I remember meeting you at the book signing just recently. But she asked me, she goes, you have to have known who Kelly was because of the retreat.
Yeah.
And I know I went on 2, but I told her, I said, the first retreat, I literally was like, it was all about me. I used all of their Kleenex. Like it was it was a good cry. That was like a release cry.
About 20 boxes.
It was crazy. I had never cried like that in my life. Because, we're always like, we're fine, we're perfect, we're this, I'm golden. Yeah, I got this over here, but I'm good.
Well, survivors are even trained not to cry, I think, as children when we're going through abuse. I think that's a training that we can't express emotions and we can't cry. So it was always a blessing to me to see that water faucet open up for survivors, because I thought, okay, now, because I always say, you guys have been with me, you got to have your breakdown before you have your breakthrough. That breakdown was the beginning of healing. So it was just really precious to witness that. But Kelly and I have ministered for years, and to see her pour her heart out into survivors and to have that special gifting that you carry and that special anointing is just, it's blessed me so very much. And I'm excited for you to tell our listeners about Warrior Bride Ministries, because it is doing some amazing work.
Okay.
So when did you start it? Warrior Bible?
It's been about, officially, it's been about 4.5 years. Prior to that, it was, more of like Facebook and me meeting people and just very kind of loose. But about 4.5 years ago, after meeting with people in parks, in my car, and sneaking in prayer rooms, I could not find anyone to open the doors to survivors. I couldn't. I went to churches. I went to Fivefold Ministries. I was looking for somebody to embrace this, and I would, do the work. But once it didn't happen, and the people, there was just too many people, and it was too much to just be doing it the way I was. So the Lord led me to get a small office. It was right before COVID.
I remember I brought you across to that office.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know, what, a 10 by 10 office?
It was very small, but we pumped thousands of people through there. Wow. I mean, I was in that office for 2 years, and I would say that we were at, maybe approaching 1,000 people, literally. Wow. And that was through COVID.
Wow.
That was with COVID, because I remember the first 8 months, it was 300 people, and then the next year was a full year, and it was, probably twice that. So, it was approaching that. So we were just pumping them through.
And when you say pumping them through, what exactly do you mean?
Explain what you were doing with them.
Yeah. Well, by that I mean appointment after appointment after appointment. Like literally, I don't get a break between my appointments. But what happened when I started, I was really doing, it was very spiritual focused, and it was about getting to the root spiritually and getting that root out in the core of it. But what I learned as I got more and more severe cases coming to me, that wasn't enough, that I really needed to also help them with skills, and I needed to help them with their emotions, releasing them, getting in touch with them, with their attachments. Most of them have very messed up attachments, and we want to move to healthy attachments because they affect so much in your life. And then also physically, because so many of them have been physically abused along with it, or they've even physically abused their bodies themselves because the pain is so great they'll cut, or they'll be anorexic or bulimic, or the list goes on and on. So it has evolved to where we're doing mind, body, spirit, soul.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, the Lord moved me into a little bit bigger place, and he was, started bringing people, more and more people. At the same time, he brought more severe cases, and by that I mean any kind of sexual abuse affects you and can really be detrimental. It's just like a snowball, because I believe it leads to abortions, unplanned pregnancies, out of wedlock pregnancies, drug addiction. I mean, the list is on and on. But
suicide.
Suicide. It is a core of so many things in our society. But I look at trauma on a spectrum, and although it all affects you very negatively, there is a difference. And I was maybe more on the left side of the spectrum by being abused by the stepfather, the coach, the stranger, that kind of thing, but more of a basic, I hate to call it basic, sexual abuse. But then it moves over into trafficking.
Well, let me clarify basic. You mean the more common?
More common, okay. Absolutely. More commonly, no, yes.
That's a better term than basic.
Absolutely. And so then it, starts to go down the spectrum of those who also were trafficked. And that brings...
Can you stop a second and just explain to our viewers that may not know what the word trafficked means?
Okay,
because I think it's a very sterile word for the commercial exploitation that takes place. But explain that.
Okay. And there are various types of trafficking, but in general, it's about an exchange for money, or for housing, or for some kind of need where you give sex to somebody willingly or unwillingly. For something in exchange. Now, willingly or unwillingly, by that I mean both male and females who would choose to do this only because they're in dire straits. But then there's also the pimp or the madam or something that gets a hold of girls or boys, because when I say that, I want everybody to understand this is not just a female issue. It's probably 60-40 female to male. So there's a lot of them. But somebody has control over them and they want to get out, but they can't. And they even take their money when they do the transaction. So it's something more along those lines.
And these are people too that are often drugged.
Yeah. And pornography goes along with that. Child pornography, all of that. Often they drug them just so that they perform and don't, cause problems. But they also can drug them to videotape them and things of that sort too.
So we sorry. So
go ahead.
Like, okay, I'm just going to pretend like I'm someone who's watching this podcast and you're talking about this. And for us, we hear about this all the time. So for us, we talk about statistics, we talk about, what could happen, all that. But if I'm listening to what trafficking means for the first time, it is mind blowing that this happens not only because I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, in other countries, but it happens in our own backyard. That I would say millions, maybe that's too high. I don't know.
No.
Thousands, millions
and we're
of
taping
kids.
from Atlanta. I know this podcast will go out worldwide,
Yeah.
but we're taping from Atlanta, and we are the highest highest city for child trafficking.
But it's
the greatest number.
It's incredible to me that when I talk to people about these things and the situations, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that." It is happening right here.
No. Yeah, the Johns are, one of the big problems, and we have a lot of money in Atlanta. There's tons of Johns here that will be the one, and a John is somebody that pays the money. That is huge. Also, what has evolved in the years is now a lot of the teenage girls from good families and everything else will do these online stripping and stuff for money. So there's this whole other realm that has opened up in terms of trafficking as well. So it can have, again, a spectrum there. But then I also want to mention what I really spend a lot of time on is the ritually abused and government-sponsored mind control. And that probably is like, what? What is that?
Wait, what?
Yeah, what is that? And if you want to talk about there being millions trafficked, there are also millions that have had this happen as well. And it's infiltrated, again, our society. It can happen. I get stories of it starting in daycares, schools, churches.
I'm sorry, I got to interrupt. When you say it, can you clarify what it is?
So it is ritually abused.
Ritually?
Yes.
Can you clarify that for me?
Yes. So there's this whole segment of the world, and they kind of keep it hidden in these secret societies and stuff. And a lot of times it's often generational that they do these rituals. They have a satanic calendar, and they follow it. And depending on what the week is, or really week, because they have a lot more celebrations than we do, they have to do various things, and it always includes some kind of sex. But it also includes a lot of more heinous stuff
And
that we can't even think of.
These rituals that often use sex, are these people adults? Are they children? Are they people voluntarily wanting to do these things? Or are these people that are drugged and doing, I
would say all of the above. This is a big generational thing because they're very into the bloodline. They want to keep this blood. They believe that they have the blood of the fallen angels, and they want to keep it nice and pure. And a lot of them are the elites, but they're not all the elites. It depends on what your job assignment was, kind of thing. It gets a little complex, but I would say all of the above. But what they do is they have to satisfy their little g god. I say little g god because they're not gods. They're fallen angels and demons and rulers in high places, which Scripture tells us about all this stuff, but none of us really, believe it happens, but it actually happens, and it happens a lot. And my calendar has a waiting list of these people that are so desperate, and they've gone to the churches, and the churches have hurt them worse. A lot of times, some of the churches, not all, some of the churches are fronts, and they do it there. The other time, the churches that are legit are not equipped. And so they go there and they're either rejected because, these people
And what are they
broken.
going there for? Just help, support,
Help.
prayer kind of thing?
Help.
And they're rejected. Why?
Well, usually
They don't
it's-
believe it. A lot of this is very foreign to what you hear in normal conversations and even what you hear in normal sexual abuse. When you have memories of being in ministry, I've dealt with many survivors, but when you have memories of being burned, being locked in a casket with leeches, being, tortured and tormented, being covered in blood and being sexually assaulted as a little child, that's more than the normal person can take. They don't think it's real. They think it's a figment of their imagination. So I think the church not being equipped is that they don't understand that this is real and that there is a very dark occult activity going on in and around our communities everywhere. And so you can help me speak to that more, Kelly, because you're in the trenches. But the work that I've done, they've been rejected time and time again as their stories aren't true.
Oh, wow. Well, even for me, like, I'm just learning about this. So I'm like the naive one listening in and going, what? Like, obviously we see movies, we hear about this stuff, but it's like, how could this be happening? Like, where does this happen? Like, I don't know. Am I in a bubble that I don't realize? Like, I don't know. It's almost like cognitive dissonance or something where I was just like, how can this be happening in our society? Like, I'm
Well,
shocked.
they're very organized and they've planned it out and they've infiltrated up to the highest of our country and our world, really. And so we have kind of been lulled to sleep. Number one, it's been set up where we have to work nonstop, where really we only have time to try to work to pay our bills and take care of our children or whatever. So we don't really know what's going on. And it's by design. And, there's a reason it's called television programming, because they're programming us. They're continuously from all different directions programming us so that we don't know what they're doing. And they do kind of keep it secret. That's the reason why it's called secret societies. And they have pretty major consequences if they speak about it. So it's very, and they usually blackmail them. They'll drug them and put them with a child, and you get a video, and then so they're not going to talk because then that's going to come out. I mean, there's so many ways. They've done a pretty good job of putting this over on us, and meanwhile, our children are being murdered, abused, and I don't even want to say right now like some of the stuff that's really going on because I think it will be too much for most people. But it's a lot, and we shouldn't allow it. And that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to be quiet. While I'm here on this earth, I believe that it is my duty as well as everybody else's, but I'm only responsible for myself to fight against this. And so what I do is I offer free of charge services. I'm there 5 days a week, and half the time, I have to go on the weekends, but I see people nonstop. And help them walk through this because the trauma is so great, they fragment, and you end up getting something called DID, which is what they used to call multiple personalities.
So, Kelly, as you deal with the most extreme, can you speak to if there's one of our viewers are listening and they have been through ritual abuse as a child or one of the most extreme or been exploited commercially, because we know that has a lot of just horrific violence involved. Can you talk to our viewers about how they can get in touch with you, talk about your website, and then just talk about some needs that you have right now?
Okay, absolutely. So again, I'm Kelly Hawley with Warrior Bride Ministries. We're at www.warriorbrideministries.com or .org, 470-563-1971. If you need help, it's no charge. We function off of love offerings if you're able. If you're not, please don't let that stand in the way. Go online to the website, hit book appointment, and do your paperwork, and I'll get you on the schedule. If you're willing to support this work, which is so desperately needed, there is a donation button. I would tell you that there's millions. Everybody that works in this industry believes that there's multiple millions of the people that have been traumatized in this way, that they now have DID, and there's a lot more to it, but maybe we can have a second episode and talk about it, because it's very complex. But I want you to know that I'm there. If you need me, please reach out. I would love to help you through this.
Kelly, if there is like a specific book that you could recommend that somebody wants to educate themselves more on the topic of ritual abuse, what would that recommendation be?
Well, the one that comes to my mind, which can be a little hard to find, is called The Black Awakening by Russ Dizdar. That is a really good one. Snatched from the Flames, Nathan Reynolds. There's starting to be more and more books out there, but those are two that have been around for a little bit. And
we can put the link in the description below.
And Kelly, we're just so grateful for the work that you're doing. And I know that these survivors are so grateful to have a place to go. Can you talk just a second about if someone wants to volunteer with your organization? What are some specific needs? Maybe admin? Can you speak to that really?
The needs are great. And yes, I absolutely need admin. I need marketing. I need people to go out and talk to the churches so that they will allow us to come in and educate them, because this is such a big battle that I cannot fight it. And me and the handful of other people that are fighting it are not enough. We need the body of Christ to rise up, to let us come in, educate them, get prepared, be trauma informed, and be a center that you can receive them. And I mean, I just need so much legal, marketing, social media. I mean, the list is endless. The need is great, and the workers are few. So
the need is great. The workers are few. I think this is a good place. We have one more question for you, Kelly, as we end this episode. We always ask for a voice of inspiration for our viewers. So do you have a voice of inspiration to share? It could be a verse. It could be a saying that you live by. Can you share?
Yeah, I guess I would speak to everybody out there that just feels like they have no time to be able to do this. A scripture that I really remember over and over and over again is, for me to be about his kingdom and he'll be about mine. For me to be about his business and he'll be about mine. Because I could take my time and apply it to all my little issues that I have going on, but I'm choosing to trust him as I help his children and help advance his kingdom, that he's going to take care of my issues. And so if we can kind of change that mindset that we have to do everything that's on our plate, but instead follow him and let him take care of it.
What a good word.
Well said. Thank you.
We thank you for being with us at the Voice Up podcast. We thank you for Kelly Holly and her great work.
It's such a pleasure to see you. And I just want to do a shout out. I know I may not remember you at the retreat, but I know what an impact that was for me. And I know you had a huge part in it. So thank you, because honestly, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the time and effort and the love that you guys pour out into survivors every day. And so I appreciate you. And I appreciate you both.
Yeah. So big hug. I thank my co-host, my beautiful co-host, Katie Sudano. We thank you for tuning in. Please share this podcast, because we have to get the word out. We have to save our children. We have to save the next generation, and we have to help survivors heal. So please share it. And just a shout out to our corporate sponsor, Mesmerize Media, for making this possible. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.